Hello again, and thank you for sharing this moment with me. I really appreciate it. Our time is so filled with information, and we're so swamped with so many of inputs and libraries of facts and insights, even in our spiritual field. So my question to you was whether you would reflect within yourself, what is different? What do I feel inside of myself is really different this year? And I wanted to bring to your attention that there was so much discussion and so much hype around 2012. And when 2013 was coming online, for many of us it was evident that there was a shift, but it was a very, very subtle shift. It was not meant to be the end of the world or things collapsing, but it was a very subtle shift underneath the platform of our reality. And for me, it was, of course, the Divine Mother who was taking over from a very different level of existence. So in many concerns, 2017 is, in fact, a replica or the real after 2012, the real new beginning of a new time. And as I said last year in our small events, 11/11 and 12/12, that the opening for the next 9 to 10 years is very visible for us. It's almost like a portal that you are looking through these timelines. And timelines in general, for many of us, have collapsed after 2012. Not all of us may have recognized this because our everyday life is just going by, but for those who work like me with these subtle fields and with the other dimensions, it was very obvious that for many of the awakening ones, the timelines would collapse, and many of these so-called past lifetimes were breaking away, and there was more and more space that was made available, that was freed up for new energy to come in. So if we recall, when we started, or you started out your journey, it was like maybe in the 80s or the 90s, there was always this understanding that there was a step-by-step process. I had to get somewhere, I had to evolve, I had to, almost like the ladder, Jacob's ladder. And I think for most of you, you feel that this process has really come to an end, because in some sense it was translated by our brain as a linear process to get somewhere. And it signifies in some sense also that we are trying to measure success, we're trying to measure unfoldment, or we get access points to heaven. But we forget that it's an inner game. It's not anything that you can compare and that you can mathematically gauge or measure in that sense. So I think most of us, not only in our spiritual arenas, but in our approach to life, have understood that this outside hologram, this matrix, has less and less effect on us, and it less and less really plays a major role in our lives. And when it comes back to spirituality, in some sense we can even say we don't talk about spirituality anymore. What is ahead of us is not spirituality or non-spirituality, it is existence itself. And that brings me back to the Divine Mother. For me, very often in the beginning was Sophia, who emerged and who gave insights on how this creation would unfold and how the laws of creation would be different in comparison to how we live as humans. And here, this feeling that things are really emerging from this inner seed, this inner impulse from a source unknown to us, but very much connected to us. This mystery is something which, for me, becomes more tangible. It has been, especially my challenge in my work, to put a name on what I was doing. People were coming, they were benefiting, they were seeing some changes in their lives. But if it comes to placing this as a product or forming this, I was always short in words. And this dilemma for me has really now opened up to a totally new horizon, because 2007 is literally the year of beyond words. It's the year of the language of the heart, or the language of light. And it has been a standard term. Many of you have heard that, but it's really signifying that our longing for the essence of life has come to a point where it goes beyond information. It goes beyond understanding things mentally, but it is even more than experience. When I was studying with my teacher, who was a veritable yoga master, he used to say, when I was saying, well, I want to get there, or how is it? He was saying, it is here. And he was pointing to his physical presence. And at the time, I was not really getting it. Part of me was probably getting it, but in my mind and in our collective understanding or approach to whatever is called God or source or heaven, it is somewhere there, but I'm not here. So it makes me understand that, looking back, that most of us have always dealt with enlightenment, ascension. Or ascension in itself is a term of I'm ascending, and it's almost like a collective imprint of Jeshua, or brother Jesus, who ascended. It means he went to heaven, and it's something that we have never questioned. It was the symbol for where we wanted to reach, and that too has, for most of our understanding, collapsed. We have understood it is something from within. And I'd like to share something from my life, for the mere fact that I'm sure that this is not at all different, and maybe you have had very similar experiences, maybe more brief or more sort of transient or even unconscious. That's why I want to bring up this example of my life. When I was 24, 25, I had a series of events of enlightenment or realization, and it gave me access to reality that is really undescribable. It's like it was all luminous fields of brilliant oscillating light and crystalline flows, and it was just ecstasy. But at the same time, I was also, when I was out of this after maybe 2-3 weeks, I was back in my life as a student, or I was working for television then. So it was like in and out, back and forth. And there was no chance ever to exchange that with anyone, nor did I have any reference. There was no literature, and there was nobody out there who could explain this to me. There was a word that came up, Brahman, and it was a state of being. I knew that, but I had no clue what this was. Until, I think it was 81, I had my first enlightened channeling process. And it was so amazing that I thought God was talking to me. And even until recently, I thought it was one of those spiritual councils, or who was it? Until I was made to understand it was my own I am presence, my own higher self, or more than that, maybe beyond that. I could not accept the fact that something so beautiful, so magnificent, would have to do anything with me, because I was just a puny little small stupid idiot that was trying to survive somehow. And even charged with a life plan, very in detail, but very simple. It was the map, the architecture for this lifetime. It was all marked. And one of the main sentences was, everything comes from within. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to get rid of anything. Don't listen to anyone out there. And what did I do? I went from X to Y to Z to get back into this experience. Until, thank God, I met my teacher, who was not a regular guru type of a person, but he was really working with the essence of source, and he was really working with divine transmission. So in some sense, we had a contract also. We had a contract to work on something of the divine couple. But nevertheless, it was another loop of going through all these old ways of trying to get home. And of course, with that experience, with such a master of caliber, I sneered at everything that was coming from the New Age, all this channeled stuff and angels and extraterrestrials. And I kept myself out of it, and there was an arrogance. I agree this today, because even my own communication was a channeling, and I didn't term it like that. It was just an experience. But this way or that way, they were all compromises. And the spiritual councils, that much I can say, since 2, 3, 4 years, maybe longer than that, but I'm aware of it since some time, they are having their action meetings, their think tanks, and their holographic PowerPoint presentations of how to help us to get out of this loop, to get out of this hardwiring of assuming, or even it's even an automatic tendency in us to ask somebody else for access, for wisdom, for insight, for guidance. And we have to stop this. It's almost like a self-defeating loop. And 2017 definitely is the year of, you've bookmarked this for yourself. This is a year where I will get there. I will not miss the bus. I will not miss the train anymore. I don't miss it. This time, this year, is the year of really connecting who I really am. Not what I think I am, not my story, not my grand past, or who I was, or my incarnations, and yada, yada, yada. But who I really am in my source quality. This we have bookmarked. It's somewhere there. But sometimes we need reminders. We need reminders of what we have set out for ourselves there in the design of our life. And I bet that anyone who has listened to this point in this video has access to their calling, has an access to their inner game and their inner purpose. And that the problem is that our human conditioning, our programming, keeps on working in automatic mode. There is, of course, first of all, the self-doubt, then there is hesitation, then there is the self-talk, I'm not ready, then there's procrastination, and then there's this great, and that's what they say, at least my team says, this is the main thick iron layer, the belief in lack. So when we started out last year for our mastermind group, the base for this group was to go through a course of enlightened money. So that was just the symbol of the representation of our adoration for lack, which is nowhere existing in this universe. It is a particular program of separation that we set up for this duality game so that we believe there is some absence. And as I said in my last video, there is a negative spin to this reality, which, goes in a way that whatever we do, we will not get out of the spin. It'll always bring us back to lack. It will always have a lack of energy, lack of talent, lack of means, lack of time, lack of opportunity, lack of money. So lack of money was there sort of guideline for us to teach us that it is a mere illusion. But even if it is an illusion, like everything here, our external world is an illusion, but it's real due to gravity. So there was a lot of work around gravity, a lot of work around the spin, the positive spin and the negative spin, matter and antimatter, dark matter, dark energies. So there's a whole range of creative field, I would say, if we talk of Merlin as the magician, or we talk of metaphysics, and we talk of the entire creation of the Divine Mother, mother meaning matter, how we are now called to enlighten matter, or to really create new matter, new energy at our command. So this is what I'm talking about. It's not about spirituality. It's not about getting goodie points to reach the goal, whatever the goal is, but to bring these higher insights that we have. It's not that we have to invent them. Nobody has to teach them this to you. Like in my own communication, they said it's all here, but how do I access it? And this process of accessing it, to my understanding, and this is what is being sort of reconfirmed in the work that I do with clients in the subtle fields, in their subtle bodies, in the way we can access through our interdimensional teams, whatever is here up for review or for releasing or for realigning, is sort of being made very tangible. That what is waiting for us is a totally new world and new earth, of course, and that it's mainly the body, our physical, coal-based biology, which is, first of all, quite connected to our ancestral lineages that are very charged, connected to the collective, the maze that we find ourselves in here in 3D, in this density. And there's so many other factors that would take too long to explain, but there is literally a process, which is a physical process, to merge with our higher accesses, meaning our light body, or the body of consciousness, which is eternal. It is not here in that sense readily available. That's something that we need to learn how to ground. And this learning is not a learning from outside, but it's an inner game. It's an inner resonance. It's an inner trigger, and the codes and all those signatures and modalities are available in our DNA. Yet we need the keys to unlock it. So that was actually the reason why this master course was asked for me to put up and offer to those who are the awakening ones. And they said, it's not really about the awakening ones. It's about those cutting edge leaders, those game changers, the pioneers, and the funny trademarks that they have, all of them, is that they don't know who they are. They have an inkling, but they put it to the back burner. They have this impulse and they know there is so much more, but then there is this difficulty to get through the gravity of third dimensional density. And I remember this from my own projects, not so much in my film business. I mean, that was a 3D thing, but with bringing forward what I had to offer, it was quite frustrating for me at times, because I knew that the tangible, visceral present that I was able to hand over and that I was able to gift to others, to offer. But then if I would go into, trying to network or trying to find other groups to, work together, it would never work out. I wouldn't even able to make myself understood. Plus, and then I was, maybe some of you are a little ahead also in marketing their whatever expertise, their service that they want to offer. And all these marketing strategies, they're so 3D, they're so metal. So if you're like me, you must have come to a point where you just dumped it all over there, even though you spend a lot of money, but it just doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for us. So, of course, the mind will say then, well, yeah, it's because you're stupid and you don't get it and you don't fit in. I mean, I've known that story, but it's not about wanting to fit in now. The call that you feel inside of your heart is, yes, I have always been different. And that's like, so what? But what is it that makes me unique, that makes me so authentic? And what is it that is so aligned with my eternal call, my purpose, my signature? That is what I want to really offer to this world. And now, how do I offer it? Now we come back to gravity. there are a few things to understand to really deal with the negative gravity, I would call it. There are some terms that we have, but here comes what, from my story, I had to also wait without ever knowing or understanding what was it about. And I think for most of you, there is something which is almost to be birthed. It is, you can almost touch it, smell it, feel it, and see it. And yet you can't put it into a reference system, because every reference system that you come up with is old. It's from yesterday's, it's like 60s. It's so unique, it's so fresh that only you are able to identify it, to birth it, to see it, to paint it. And that is something that they said is the real marker. It's almost as if you're completing yourself. Like me with my spheres of Genesis, when this occurred, it was 2001, in the beginning of 2001, and I got to see only little pieces, some architecture, some little facets, some little hints. I had no clue what this was meant to be, but I felt and I heard these guys, I call them my team, that pushed me further, and they said, this is important. And you have to work in the dark. You have to just follow your impulse and our guidance. And of course, I was thinking it is Melchizedek and Metatron. Those were the ones that started it, because it was a sort of geometrical form, and there are so many shapes and shades to it. But in the end, they said, well, it's not ours, it's yours. We just helped you see it. We'll help you give it a reference system, which is not 3D, which is higher dimensional, and to understand something invisible that is higher dimensional, which is quantum, which is eternal. It is, well, to say the least, it's challenging. But this is what I think has not been offered so far: a safe space of, like in my case, it's the spheres of Genesis, a wonderful, multidimensional space of light with crystalline features that offers a safe space to all of us who participate in this journey. And even though we may not understand the way it works, the way it regulates, the way it connects through the mind, but all of those who have learned with me and who apply the spheres of Genesis in their therapeutic or healing work, they say it's almost as if it is doing stuff by itself. I don't have to do much. I'm just sort of like the bridge and the ambassador between those other realms and this third dimensional need or challenge or transition or whatever it was called for. So in this respect, there is something which is, I would call, the great void or the mystery, which is more than what we have tried to do so far. And in some sense, for me personally, it is something that the great masters have prepared for us. Those who came in at the end of the 19th century or beginning of the 20th century, who paved the way. And there's not only the Eastern masters, there are others too, but it's such a heart's desire of the spiritual councils, and I can literally physically feel it, and especially, of course, the Divine Mother, to bring back this understanding to humanity who we really are. And if there's a part of this collective humanity that just wants to go on playing in duality and polarity, that's wonderful. But at least those who have enough and who are tired of this third dimensional rounding and circling, and who feel there is so much more out there, which is not called spirituality, it's not even called God. There is this amazing cauldron, this womb of creation for the new earth, where everyone who feels called is so welcomed in co-creating what we have desired, life after life after life, eons of time. And I don't think that these calls come repeatedly. That's what I said in the beginning about the bus. Okay, there was this glitch. I think this is very typical also for people like us, and I'm sure you encountered that too, when technology just simply fails, just simply collapses. And I've been having this on and off in the past couple of months. But I think, almost through for this message or this conversation with you, to arrive at this point of the great mystery, where all these questions of my human concern, my small little limited life here between my birth and my death, really become kind of boring, because we feel more and more, and we understand ourselves more and more as this eternal presence that is really expanded, that is so beyond all these time-space concerns and all these gravitational movements and yada, yada, yada. So I hope I could trigger a little bit of this level in yourself that is really worth connecting with. This level that is conscious, that's always here, present in the event horizon, so to speak. And I hope I can also interest you to continue this conversation with me. If you are interested and if you want to participate, there's always the possibility to write in an email at support@pinkdeath-earth.com, or just wait for the next video, and I'd be delighted to see you again, and maybe we enter into a deeper conversation, and not only the conversation, but the experience of connecting to these substantial essences within ourselves with which we can really viscerally co-create the new earth. And until then, I wish you a wonderful time. Be fulfilled, love yourself, breathe, and hope you see you soon. Namaste.